What's going on, everyone? So, the Los Angeles Lakers obviously need to look and try to pull off some trades this upcoming offseason. And going into this offseason, there was a lot of questions of like, okay, what are the value of some of these guys? What are the value of an Austin Reeves, a Rui Hachimura, right? Gabe Vincent probably doesn't get much value. Kleba probably doesn't have much value. I'm sure that there are teams that would love them as veterans, but you're not getting like first round picks or, anything crazy like that. Like teams would kind of be like, oh, hey, we'll take him as part of like the salary type thing, and then the Lakers do have expiring contracts, which I do think add a lot of value. We saw the value that it had last season. I think it's only going to, have more value as this CBA kind of becomes more and more, front and center for a lot of these teams that need to get off of guys and whatnot, right? I mean, again, you have teams like Orlando willing to give up assets to get off a guy like a KCP who would be ideal for the Lakers. It's like, hey, we'll take those assets to give you an expiring contract. Can you find a team like that out there that's like, hey, this guy would be great for us and maybe we can get an asset out of the deal, right? Like those expiring contracts are going to have a lot of value. Now, I do think that those expiring contracts, their value is really best capitalized on at the trade deadline. I think they're appreciating assets, right? The longer you can hold out on those guys, the more value that those will have, because you get teams at the trade deadline that are like, we kind of want to hit a reset one way or another, or kind of retool next season one way or another. So let's kind of use the Lakers as a place. Like even Orlando is a team that I've talked about that, hey, they're going to be, not only are they going to be a second apron team, just by Paolo Banchero, but they're going to be well into the second apron. Just Paolo Banchero's new contract will put them well into the second apron, like 20 plus million over into the second apron. So they're a team even that might have to get off of some guys. And there will be other teams, right? There'll be other teams that are like, hey, we don't really want to be a second apron team as like the fifth team in the West or the fifth team in the East or whatever. So Lakers could be a team that may be able to capitalize on that. But you look at particularly the Desmond Bane trade, right? He went for a haul. Now, context matters. Some of that haul was to get off of KCP. But, okay, let's call it a first, right? Because KCP is still a good player. I know he's coming off a down year, but I think that was more of just like Orlando doesn't have a true playmaker, right? Like KCP's best years were alongside LeBron James and Nikola Jokic. I don't think that that's a coincidence, right? So, I do think he's a very valuable player for a lot of teams, especially teams that are trying to contend and win and whatnot. He is overpaid without a doubt, but he doesn't have like 5 years still on his deal. So let's call it a first. One of those firsts went out to unload KCP. Okay, right? Well, that means Desmond Bane still went for 3 firsts and a pick swap. It's a lot, right? So what does that mean for the Lakers players? And look, it's not just Lakers. You're already hearing this conversation for basically every team in the league, right? A lot of these NBA people are like, hey, this might be a good time to kind of cash in on some guys, because if that's the going rate. Now, I do think context matters. I do think some things are important. And we kind of go through this every year, right? Where, like a Rudy Gobert trade, it's like, or a Mikal Bridges. Like Mikal Bridges goes for, and everyone was like, no, that just ruined the NBA. That just ruined the trade market, because now everyone's going to have to overpay for guys, and he's never been an all-star and this, that, and the other. And you end up seeing that, like, that's not the case. Teams understand the context. Teams know, one, you were trading with Brooklyn, right, with never done. Two, that you were willing to overpay because it was the kind of guy you wanted. You were trying to compete and match up better with Boston, and, you wanted the Villanova connection, right? So, like, teams understood like that was a fleece. Rudy Gobert. People were like, Rudy Gobert goes for that haul. Oh my God, every team in the league is going to. And one, in hindsight, that actually worked out for Minnesota. But two, right, like everyone understood the cost. Like it didn't change everything. Everyone was like, yeah, that was crazy. And it just like went business as usual. So does this Desmond Bane trade, is that kind of one of those things where teams understand like he's exactly the type of player Orlando needs. He's on multiple years. They wanted to unload KCP in his contract. They're a little bit desperate. Like how many free agents are going into that spot? They don't even have the money to sign free agents, right? Like how many teams are looking at the context of that situation and going like that was more of an outlier than a norm, right? But there's also the potential that that's the thing. And I think if you're the Lakers, you at least are exploring the potential that that's a thing, right? Rui Hachimura, right? I think a veteran team might be willing to give up a first for him, but if that's the going rate for guys, could you maybe, instead of a veteran, a team, could you maybe get a better first, right? Because not all firsts are created equal. Maybe a team's willing to give you a first that's, top 5 protected, but now they'll give you an unprotected first, right? Because it's like, well, Desmond Bane was going for this. Rui's got to go for at least this, right? Austin Reeves is the big one, right? If Desmond Bane is going for that, what is Austin Reeves going for? Even if you think Desmond Bane is the better player and you add in KCP's context, right? Austin Reeves is at least bare minimum 2 firsts and a pick swap, right? Say Desmond Bane, right? Because he went for 4 firsts and a pick swap, right? Plus a young player, plus a veteran player, right? So, but also his contract, he's much more than Reeves. Like Reeves wouldn't yield multiple veteran guys, right? But point is, right? You look at Austin Reeves, like, okay, even if you think Desmond Bane is better, I think they're pretty close to a wash. I think Austin Reeves does things better than Desmond Bane is a better 3-and-D guy, right? And it's funny, I've seen people be like, well, Desmond Bane would be better on the Lakers than Austin Reeves would. And it's like, yeah, because of what he does, right? Like Desmond Bane is a better 3-and-D guy, right? So, and with Luka and LeBron, you don't need necessarily Austin Reeves. That's the problem with Austin Reeves. You don't need what Austin Reeves does best. Austin Reeves is a better offensive engine. He's a better, offensive creator, right? Like he's better difficulty shot maker. He's better just offensive. Again, he's a better offensive player, right? Both creating and scoring. So again, yeah, like Lakers, what do the Lakers need ideally next to Luka and LeBron? 3-and-D guys. What is Desmond Bane? A 3-and-D guy, right? So again, like, yes, he would be better, but it's not because he's a better player. It's just, again, he's a better fit, right? So that's just something I've seen a lot that I wanted to touch on. But again, like Austin Reeves, I think is pretty close to watch. But let's say you think Desmond Bane is better, right? And again, like I mentioned earlier, let's say Desmond Bane went for 3 firsts and a pick swap. Austin Reeves, bare minimum, is going for 2 firsts and likely 2 firsts and a pick swap, right? So, because again, Desmond Bane, even if you think Desmond Bane is better, he's not multiple firsts better. He might be a first better. So, okay, that means Austin Reeves is 2 firsts and a pick swap. Now, again, we have to understand that there is the potential that Orlando simply just saw Desmond Bane as the ideal guy that they needed. You don't think that there's teams that would look at Austin Reeves as the ideal guy? I mean, Orlando could be one of those teams because they still could use playmaking. They have the defense. They have everything. They could still use a guy that can, dish it out, right? But you also have other teams that just need play. I mean, Houston could desperately could use somebody like an Austin Reeves, right? A real guy that can be an offensive creator, an engine, and also go be a bucket for you. Just go score and self-create, right? Like, so there's several teams that could look at Austin as like, man, he's the ideal piece. And that could drive up the price for you, right? So, again, I don't think some of these, I don't think like Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, these guys, I don't think those guys are affected in any way by like this potential market, right? I do think they could be in the sense of like they are an expiring contract, and could you find that team that really wants to get off a guy and are willing to pay for it, right? But I don't want the Lakers just to do that just for fun, right? I want them to do that for a guy that actually makes it. Like, again, if Orlando called and we're like, hey, we'll give you a first and KCP for, Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber because we want to get off of Gabe Vincent's or KCP's contract, then yeah, you do that all day because you're taking on the money, but he's a guy that's perfect and ideal and exactly what this team needs. Where if you were to go and do something like that for, I don't know, like just like an overpaid guy, right? Pick an overpaid guy, right? Like, but no, it doesn't make sense. If it's a guy that just doesn't make any sense, then no, it's silly, right? So like, can you find a team that has a guy on multiple years that are like, kind of like to get off of this guy, right? Like, and if it's a guy that makes sense, right? Like a guy that comes to mind that maybe, I mean, you'd still have to give up assets for it. They're not going to pay you to take this guy, but like a Lauri Markkanen, right? Utah wanted to trade Lauri Markkanen before his contract because they didn't want to have to pay him that contract, and now they did, and now he's overpaid, right? But he's not great as like your first or second option, but as like your third or fourth option, he would be fantastic, right? And he's exactly the type of player that the Lakers need, a guy that can spread the floor, knock down the three ball, right? Could slot in essentially 3 through 5 for you. I think it'd be a little clunky of like, where do you slot him, right? Because LeBron's kind of your 4 now. He doesn't solve your center position. Are you really starting him at your 3? You can't really bring him off the bench because he's making too much money. So like, I do think it'd be a little awkward, but again, it's just more of an example than anything. But, you know, like a Lauri Markkanen, could you go to a team like Utah and, you know, be like, hey, wouldn't you love to get off of his contract? Yeah, we would. Okay, well, we can do that for you. And, you know, maybe you can get him for a couple swaps rather than a first. And it's like, he's good enough to take a flyer on. It's just things like that. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Past question. You let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. You think the Lakers, you know, kind of key guys have more value? Do you think that they hasn't changed? Think it's the same? Either way, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So enjoy these types of videos and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.